All right. So I think we got this going on. We got it recorded. So we're excited to have you, everybody, and we'll go into this workshop Wednesday. So today, what we're going to discuss is change management, right? Leading your fleet through staff transitions. We're really excited for this topic. I think for a lot of people that we've talked to, there's been a lot of transition lately for a host of different reasons, whether it's the admin leaving the team, getting a great opportunity, or a dispatcher that went somewhere else. So we're going to talk about, how do we manage those changes, and we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty details. But really excited, and as always, just a little introduction for those of you who are new to Workshop Wednesday, right? This is Agile's monthly Fleet Commander Knowledge Series. And the webinars are scheduled on the third Wednesday of the month from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. We always welcome your feedback. We'll talk about it throughout this whole Workshop Wednesday. We want your feedback now, and we'll continually want your feedback because we want to make sure that these topics, that they're resonating with you, and not only that you're taking away key points and you're able to work them into hopefully your shop and your fleet life, but even better, right, your personal life, your relationships with your friends and family, certain things that you're taking away that helps you either build character or build your fleet. And at the end of this webinar, you're going to see there's a QR code. We'll leave it up there a little bit awkwardly long for you to get out your smartphone, take a picture, and again, asking for feedback, anything that you want to share with us. We would love to hear more about how we can make these more relevant. So before we begin, this webinar is being recorded, and your mic is going to be muted during the webinar. This is being recorded, obviously, so that recording can then be distributed to you. It'll be available on our YouTube channel, and slides will be provided 1 to 2 business days after today. So, although your mic is recorded or is muted here, we absolutely love your questions and welcome your feedback and insight. So for those of you that are pro Zoom and don't know Teams, welcome to Teams. Up in the top portion of your Teams app, you're going to see this bubble that says chat. Click on it. It's going to bring out this meeting chat field. And we want you to go in, and when you text or when you send a message, the first thing we'll ask you to do, because we can't see who's sending those messages, we want you to put your first name and then the organization that you're with, followed by your question. And it helps us, understand exactly what you're coming from, because some of our customers might have just motor pool, and others have motor pool with key boxes, and others have motor pool and maintenance, right? And so it helps us get a little context when we're answering some of our questions. But then afterwards, it helps us follow up and make sure that you got the answers that you need, and that what we talked about was clear enough to help you in whatever situation or answer any question. So without further ado, whether you like it or not, you have me today, but Kathy is here and Kathy will speak. So we're excited about that. For those of you who have never met me, my name is Todd Parks. I am on the client success team, and I work with Kathy here. I've been with Agile Fleet for coming up on 10 months, and it's been an amazing opportunity to work with all of our customers. Everyone is very different, but the people in Fleet are very much the same. They are amazing individuals who have really good intentions and who want to make sure that their communities and the people that they work with have and find success. And so, as you guys all are aware of, Kathy, our CAFM. She is our Senior Director of Client Success. She oversees all of client success. So we are going to be your speakers today. And let's get into our agenda and our talking points. So we talk about change, changes in fleet, the ways that we kind of look at it and then put it back into what we do with Fleet Commander. We're going to talk about how to master effective communication. If anybody tells you that they are the ultimate master of effective communication, go talk to their spouse, because it's probably not true. Hopefully, some of the things I talk about today is going to help, right? I think we can all improve on communication, and this will show you some ways that you can do it, and do it maybe with your Fleet Commander solution. Build resilience and adaptability. So we'll take that in a broad context, and then we'll narrow down into Fleet Commander as well. And then leveraging technology for seamless transitions. So we know as a fleet manager, as a business, there are tons of different technology. We're going to focus on Fleet Commander, but I'm assuming a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about can be applied to other solutions and technologies that you have. So first, in just mastering effective communication, right? I think what's really helpful when we're talking about change management and we're talking about changes, right? So what we've seen is there's a fleet manager that has been with an organization for a long time, and they end up working their way out of the organization. That's what we've seen a lot lately. But we've also seen people that have come in for a brief stint, either on an interim basis, and then they leave. Not everything that we're seeing is with a fleet manager. A lot of it can be just different parties, whether it's your head mechanic, whether it's your head shop supervisor, or it can be a dispatcher. And so what we're going to talk about here is making sure that we determine and document who holds each fleet administration responsibility. So that's what I would advise people when you're working in a shop or you're just working within an organization, especially your fleet, having a chance to meet with that fleet team and saying, hey, who holds this responsibility? Whether you storyboard it or you just talk it out, work it out through paper and pen, who owns certain responsibilities, whether it's prepping cars and making sure that they get clean, or it's making sure they get oil changes, or it's, hey, somebody left something in the vehicle, and so we need to manage our lost and found, right? Documenting those responsibilities and then assigning those is definitely key. And then outlining primary and secondary roles. So let's say you are a fleet manager, and heavens forbid, the other thing that we see a lot of is, obviously there's things that go on in life that aren't pleasant, whether they're health issues or they're passing of loved ones, but also, pleasant things like vacations, right? Your daughter just got married and you need to be out for a week. You just had a baby, right? And you need to be out for 6 weeks or 9 weeks. How are people going to manage without you? And so documenting that information, as well as making sure people understand this is your primary role and this is your secondary role. So who is my potential backfill when I'm out of the office? That's going to be huge to make sure that we effectively manage and communicate change and communicate that throughout the organization, right? So your management team understands that, and then others within the organization understand that as well. I always like talking about taking this information, because not only does it help with change management within your organization, but what we're finding with a lot of people, and we're talking to fleet managers, is you've surrounded yourself with amazing people, right? And a lot of the times those amazing people don't get credit for the jobs that they actually do, simply because they're so willing and they're so awesome that they'll take on extra responsibilities. And they'll take those responsibilities on, but when you go look at their documentation or you look at their roles and responsibilities, none of that's documented, right? And because of that, it may not be visible to people within your organization, especially your higher ups. And so we're advising people, and what we've seen happen is as an individual takes on more responsibility, document it for, yes, your organization and making sure your customers are happy, but also it helps when you go to your annual reviews, and you as a manager, you're trying to keep people to stay with you long term. So you can pitch, hey, look at Kathy, look at what she's done. She's taken on this, this, and this. I'm suggesting that we give her X% of raise, or there's this new job that's opened, or hey, we need to create a role, and I think that Kathy is going to be the right person for that. So outlining these responsibilities, making sure that you document it, it's huge for multiple reasons. The other thing that I would advise people to do, especially when it comes to fleet managers and fleet commander, is making sure that you audit who your administrators are and confirm that they have the right permissions to act in your absence. So a lot of times what we see, right, is somebody will leave for the day, whether it's for a good reason or a bad reason, and people within the organization realize, oh shoot, I can't act or do something. And so we'd advise on an annual basis, or some people, they're more diligent than others. Make sure that you go through and you look at who's going to be part of your admin team that owns the rights of facilitating everything within your motor pool, your fleet management, and make sure that if there's a situation that you aren't going to be present or somebody else isn't going to be present, they have the certain rights and responsibilities to act in your absence. And a good way to continue to make sure that you don't have these gaps is going to your stakeholders, whether it's different sites, right? So you manage a motor pool and you have 14 different sites, going and talking to these different sites. If you have somebody that's handing out keys, and understanding what they need to have more autonomy, right? And we don't obviously just want to grant autonomy just for the sake of autonomy. How do we do that while also maintaining control of our organization? Because you have higher ups that you need to answer to, making sure it's not going to impact your reporting or anything like that. So for those of you that are new to the solution, or you might be a veteran to the Fleet Commander solution, how you go about editing some of your users, go in to your manage users and search for a user, or you can actually go down and check a specific user. As you can tell, I'm a Phoenix Suns fan, so my user is Devin Booker here. And you can go in, look at their profile. Obviously you can change a lot of things, but what we're really looking at here is maybe Devin has certain responsibilities when I leave that he needs to do within Fleet Commander. And right now, as you can see, I haven't given them the rights. So you can come in here and you can check all of those rights, or you can unselect all of those rights. And there's enterprise level, there's all these different rights and permissions. I would suggest you take the opportunity to learn a little bit more about it. I think even for those of us who work here at Agile Fleet, with all the different permissions that are necessary, it's always good to refine what those permissions are, and kind of like a layer of the onion, how they unfold in making sure that people have the right permissions. So these are all the definitions. I'm not going to go through them. I'm just showing them for you for I guess the sake of when we send out this presentation. If you do not know what these permissions are or how to manage them, I'm always going to point you back to your resources with FC Drive. So for people who don't have access to FC Drive, this is what it looks like. And you can come in here and type what you want. It'll show your history. Obviously, I looked at this before. Once I hit the search button, it shows all the articles that are related to permissions. And you can see as you hover over it, it gives you a little excerpt, but I'm just going to click on this article and I can go through, and all of those definitions that I provided are definitions that are listed here. So if you don't have access to FC Drive, I would encourage you either now, right, in the chat box to say, hey, I've never seen this before. Can you follow up with me? Again, put your name and your organization, and we'll follow up with you to make sure that you have access to this afterwards. But if you do have access, I encourage you to go kind of mess around with it after today, or maybe sometime this week, just to make sure you're comfortable with it, as well as just see all of the wonderful things that are in there that can help you as you try to navigate your fleet when it comes to Fleet Commander. All right. The other thing when it comes to change, overall change, and making sure we're doing good with communication is making sure that we write down our fleet processes and we store them in a repository, right? Some repository, whatever that is. And a lot of the times I see kind of a mistake that happens with just organizations in generally. It's not just isolated to fleet management, is we write these down, but we don't train on these processes. So make sure that we take the time, right? Even though I know it's the least fun thing to come in and talk about, hey, here's this new process, right? But making sure that we're training people on these fleet processes so everybody within the organization knows who needs to know. We distribute that documentation and those SOPs, right? So follow up, making sure that they have access to it. And then if you do have some sort of repository, making sure that all your teammates have access to it. I know a lot of people have internal knowledge bases. Some people use Confluence within their organization or Zendesk. I've even heard of people saying they use Help Juice. I'd be interested to hear what other people are using when it comes to documenting those processes. And the other thing that I always recommend is reaching out to people in your operations or maybe even your HR department. I don't like writing SOPs, but there probably is somebody within your organization who's good at it and knows how to do it. So as you reach out to, maybe it's an HR thing, they might help you with that, or it might be somebody in your operations team that would be able to do that as well. So again, making sure that you delegate is huge too. I see, and Kathy and I, whenever we get a chance to visit with our customers, we see that a lot of you take on a lot of responsibility, and a lot is on your shoulders. So whenever you can find a way to delegate, we would always recommend that. So kind of getting into our second phase, how do we build resilience and adaptability, right? I think as a team, when we huddle, and I think everybody knows this, right? The only constant in life is change. I guess this guy's put it two different ways. There's nothing permanent except for change. We all know that change is inevitable, and the same thing happens organizationally. I think everybody, especially fleet, was rocked sideways when COVID hit, right? So what I would like for you to do is, as we go through this, if you were in command when COVID hit, think of some of the things that you maybe didn't have in place for that. And again, we're talking about a global pandemic. That's not normal, but it can help us prepare for change and adversity, right? And so there's a lot of things that we can put in place when it comes to processes that'll help us for that change, but nothing overcomes culture, right? And so building a fleet culture, if you're a fleet admin, I know it's hard to focus on this at times, but how are you building resilience within your fleet? So I'd ask you to, to think about that. Maybe one of your takeaways is really asking yourself this and thinking about this. How are you building resilience? And then on top of that, how does your fleet operation adapt to change? Right? Again, kind of going back to the COVID situation, or if somebody ended up within your organization that was very, very vital, they ended up getting sick. There are different circumstances. How did it impact you, and how have you adapted to be better for tomorrow? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to what we're doing for fleet, we just want our customers to be happy, right? We want our community to be happy, and so not only you know building a culture around this is helping and reminding people of your whys. Why are we doing this? Why are we, helping people rent vehicles? The other thing to consider as well is maybe doing an accountability chart. So again, we're going to talk a little bit high level here, but most people that I talk to, they have what's called an organizational chart, right? That it clearly defines who reports to who, but sometimes it misses and doesn't define the roles of who is responsible for those roles. And so an accountability chart, it's going to clearly define the roles of the organization and who's responsible for those roles. And for me, I think that these are wildly beneficial because, again, whenever change happens, whenever there's a proverbial wrench thrown into your operations, it's never going to be seamless and it's never going to be easy, right? But we can prepare for that, and knowing who has certain roles helps us fill the gaps. So again, right, if my baker calls in and I understand that that baker has the responsibility of baking the cakes, managing the kitchen, and the quality control, now that helps me understand that when that person calls in, these are some things that we need to make sure are taken care of. So I'd really advise people, if you haven't done it, to do an accountability chart for the people within your organization. Because the other thing that you do that you'll find that there's a lot of things that aren't accounted for. And so we might need to go back to the board and we might need to say, hey, we've got all of these responsibilities that aren't being taken care of. Here's our goals for this year. We need an additional headcount or a couple of headcounts. And so having a plan like this, having an accountability chart, it'll help you communicate with your leadership team on what you need to do. And again, when it comes to goals, right, maybe some of the goals that you have for this year may not be feasible with what you have. And so you need to adjust so that they're realistic. So resilience within Fleet Commander, what I would advise is, first and foremost, cross-train team members on your Fleet Commander duties. If you have a fleet team, take the opportunity to grab that team together and talk about what your responsibilities are, but then also schedule throughout the month or throughout the quarter opportunities for cross-training, so that if there is a situation where somebody is out, somebody else can at least step in and allow your organization to function for a day or two, or whatever the time is. I always like, and Kathy's going to walk us through this a little bit more. A lot of the times we manage our daily efforts in silence, which again, we're all big boys and girls, and we take care of our own business. But in a situation where you're working as a team fleet, taking the opportunity to walk somebody, especially if you're a fleet admin, right, and one of your team members is going to have to step up, helping them walk through your day to show what's important, so that all of your customers get a similar to the same experience that they would have if you were there. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people notice is when somebody's out, right, it starts to impact people who are reserving, and they'll say, well, Anna does this, and we never knew that Anna did that, right? So taking somebody through your daily tasks and showing them what you do and why you do it, that's wildly beneficial. And then again, documentation can't be said enough, but we're going to talk about when it comes to Fleet Commander, there's a lot of data that you're being asked to pull, whether it's you or somebody else. Make sure that you're documenting how you're running those reports, and we'll get into that for data consistency. So when it comes to daily routine, Kathy, I'm going to have you kind of give people some insight into what you did when you came into the dashboard.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Todd. Great stuff. So one of the important things is the dashboard, right? So what we have found in our positions in client success is that a lot of times there is a change, or just like what Todd has been saying, somebody is all of a sudden out of the office and somebody else is having to look at the day-to-day parts of the operation. And so today I thought I'd just highlight real quickly on the dashboard what you need to be looking for. You know, when you come in for the day and you're responsible for the vehicles, this should be the first place that you're going to. Late for pickups. So why is late for pickups important? Obviously, the number one reason is if that vehicle is not back from the previous rental, whoever has it scheduled for the next day, it's not going to be available, right? So you need to find out why those vehicles are late. Do you need to extend the reservation? Do you need to move any reservations around to make sure that when someone comes up to the kiosk, they have a vehicle there, even though their previous vehicle wasn't returned? The next section that I would look at here is the change request. So typically things go into the change request if they were once approved, but now have to do something different. So for example, several change requests could be, I was scheduled to pick up at 12 noon, but I now need to leave at 9 a.m. That would go into the change request queue. And if you aren't monitoring that change request queue and you haven't gone in and updated that reservation till 9 a.m. from noon, when they go to the kiosk to get the vehicle, it's going to say that it's not there. So these are also some common things that, you know, will help make those calls smoother because you can avoid those extra calls. Another thing might be, I know it was quite common in our fleet too, that maybe the number of passengers changed. So it might be that I had a 7-passenger minivan, but I can now take a car. So you can, whatever that change is, they write it out and you can go ahead, make the change and reapprove the reservation. And just a reminder, you have to click approve after you make the change. Otherwise, it's still going to sit out there in the change request queue. Next is the pending request, and that's on the top there. And as you can see, it's really nice. The guide gives you kind of yellow and red and so forth what to look for. So the pending request, they're going to be there because they've made a reservation, they've made a request. However, for some reason, the system can't automatically fulfill it. It could be that they have asked for a mid-sized car and you're out of mid-sized cars, but you have a compact. So you might want to give them a different vehicle. It could be that they don't have the proper status for a certain type of vehicle. So maybe they have tried to change to a 15-passenger van, but they don't have permission for a 15-passenger van. So it could be lots of different reasons that it could be pending. And some of those pendings also might be that you choose to put it into pending. So for example, we had different types of reservations. We had daily, we had seasonals, which were like a month to 9 months, and then we had annual leases. Those seasonals that we had, I wanted to specifically assign a certain vehicle to them because they might be going to the field. I would take a much deeper dive since they were going to have that vehicle long term. So I would have those types of requests go into pending so we can have somebody review those, whoever's at the dispatch desk. Finally, I think the next one we have is late for pickup. And so that is just saying you can kind of see really briefly in the upper left-hand corner where it's red as well, that these particular vehicles are late for pickup. So why have they not come? Is there a reason that they haven't come? Is it a duplicate reservation? Do you need to reach out to them to see if they're okay or if they're still coming? Some of you will have rules automatically set up that if they don't come and they're late after, say, 2 hours, it'll automatically cancel and drop it off. So you can build those kinds of rules in there too, so that number doesn't get up too high. Typically, what I saw for late for pickups was when people were making reservations, they just allowed the default time to be their pickup time. So changing that would help. Now, finally, the last one we're going to look at, I got ahead of myself there, is users pending. So these are people that are requesting the use of the system. However, they have not gotten permissions from you, like those permissions that Todd showed you earlier. So they're saying, hey, I want to work with you, but I can't until you approve my authority to do so. So they might be waiting for MVR checks, depending on your rules. It might be that you just need to review it because they just put their request in. But that is the main activity that I would be looking for when you come in, and making sure that whoever might have to sub for you, maybe it's just for an afternoon, maybe it's for a maternity leave or something. These are the types of things that will really help their day go easier.
And for me, when Kathy was, walking me through this was not the first thing that I would have thought of when coming into the dashboard. And so I propose it to you. If you want to share, great. If you don't, no worries. But it'd be interesting just to take a poll of when you first get into the system for your day, what do you go to? What do you look at? Do you look at the dashboard, or do you go straight to the manage reservations report? As you know, with Fleet Commander, there's a lot of data in different places. And so it's interesting as Kathy and I go onto different sites, what people go to and what they look at, because what's important to somebody in one fleet isn't really important because their goals are completely different. So if you are willing to share, and you can even do this one anonymous, it'd be great to just figure that out and hear about it.
I just added it to the chat, so hopefully they'll give you some answers, Todd.
There you go. I love it. The other thing, and this is just a really recent example, kind of goes back into just making sure that people know what's going on, is manage reservations. So we've had situations where somebody leaves who was doing the reservations, and they're doing reservations where they don't have a key box, right? So they're actually handing out the keys, and in doing that, they forgot or didn't know, because nobody really taught them, that they actually need to dispatch that reservation out in order to get some of that data back for all the data that you want to get when it comes to running some of the reports. So it was a great example of when we talk about change requests, right? Either somebody leaving for the day or somebody just transitioning. Nobody had really walked through that process with these individuals, that you need to dispatch it out. And when the vehicle comes back, putting it on the hook isn't going to complete that reservation, right? There's a process to completing that reservation. And so, again, a lot of times you would think, oh, hey, somebody just knows this. I think a lot of people don't understand how smart and capable they are, and they just think people are going to know how they do certain things, but it usually doesn't end out that way. So making sure that you communicate these kind of things, so that, again, the other thing that impacted or was impacted on this was, because they weren't doing this for this period of time, now they have no reporting. And so when it comes to reporting, the things that we want to make sure that you are cognizant of, if you are, hey, this is going to be my last month, right? And I've been doing this job phenomenally for the last 4 years. when you come into our reports, and it might freak people out the first time they see this, is there's a lot of customization, right? There's a lot of things to where you can manipulate these reports to get the data that you need. If you do have reports that are being funneled up or funneled down, take the time to go through and document, here are the 15 reports that are absolutely like we absolutely need to run, or these are the reports that I run and that I send to Jeff and Sharon and so on. And when you do this, make sure you just take some time to say, hey, where am I getting the dates, right? Is it made between? Is it a start date? Because this all impacts data. You're going into it even further. And when you go on to other reports, you'll see different things like statuses. Are you including unavailable or available? Are you including deleted, right? So all of those things will impact the data that you're receiving on reports. And when you pull the report and you accidentally include or don't include something, right, that can throw off what you're looking at if you're trying to do some trending data that you as an organization have been doing over time. Other things, right? Are we excluding holidays? Are we excluding weekends? Some fleets, because they don't have our key control boxes, they're not operating on holidays and they're not operating on weekends because their shop isn't 24/7, because they can't come in and just grab the keys for that reservation. They have people on site, so they have specific hours. And so they probably would say, hey, I'm not going to include those weekends, or I'm going to exclude those holidays. And we won't get into everything, but it's very important. Are you pulling it for a specific site, right? There might be a site that the data, because the way they operate is really different, right? We've had people in motor pool where they are a sheriff's department, right? And they operate completely differently, but they're part of the motor pool, and we manage that fleet for what we call long-term and short-term rentals. And so maybe we want to exclude those sites, making sure that you say, hey, we're including all or multiple or just a single site is good to make sure that you document, again, the different types. Is it multiple types? Is it a single type? Maybe we're just trying to compare vans to vans, mid-size to mid-size. Just make sure that you get some of this, communicate some of this, so that way within your organization, as you move on, things continue to go in the right direction, and goals are being met. So I know that there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage Fleet Commander. We only have an hour today, and so we're not going to get into all of this. A lot of these things people know, but when I thought about how we leverage technology for seamless transitions, there's the somewhat planned transitions, I'd like to call them, where I know I'm going to be out at a conference, and so I have things documented for somebody to take over for that role. When I think about leveraging technology for transitions, I think of how can technology maybe tell me a story if I'm the one that got thrown into the circus, right? And a lot of the times, I think that's where a lot of fleet managers take over, right? I just don't know what's going on, and I've been thrown into this deep end and I got to figure it out. And that's okay, right? Hopefully you have some technologies that are in place. What I always recommend is, first and foremost, most of the time you are surrounded by really good people. Lean on your people, talk to them, have discussions with them. And then from that point, lean on your technology. What I mean by that is you can run reports to help tell a story. You can run all this type of data. You can look at different pieces of data to really tell a story of where your fleet exists today, where your organization exists today. And that just doesn't pertain to Fleet Commander. It pertains to, any technology and any situation that you're taking in. And hopefully the people that were before you we're good stewards of the data. And so you have something to work with. Sometimes you may not. But when it comes to Fleet Commander, right, who can you lean on when it comes to understanding where you're at, where you came from, and help you get into that position of where you need to go, right? We always recommend FC support. They're fantastic. A lot of our support reps have been with us for a long time. Many of them are former fleet managers, but we have implementation managers that have been with you, most of our customers since the beginning, and can help you understand why certain things were set up the way that they were set up, and what your predecessor was thinking. There's FC Drive. I can't talk about that enough. We've already talked about it. We'll talk about it again. Go to FC Drive to understand certain things, to better understand how things are set up and why they were set up. And then what a lot of people I talk to as a client success manager, there's something called a shared folder, and it's not all of our customers have had this, but most of our customers within the last 6 to 7 years, what we've done is we've made sure to be really diligent when we're doing onboardings or adopt and optimization calls, as well as just the overall configuration of your site. Steve, John, Helen, Phelps, they'll tape these, right? They'll also put into your shared folder the spreadsheets that you provided us, the data, and then again, why you set up things particular to your organization. As most of you that have been in Fleet Commander, there's a lot of customization, and not everything's applicable to every fleet. And so having your shared folder, if you don't have a link to it and you would like a link to that, reach out to your amazing client success team, and they can help you get access to that. So I'm going to go through some of this really quick, but when you do communicate change, right, you're the new sheriff in town, you're coming in and you want to do some things different. There's mechanisms inside Fleet Commander that can allow you to help you facilitate that, right? So one thing that, some people use it, some people don't, but I always think this is a great resource, is using and leveraging our email tools, right? So if you go into tools and come to send email, there's a user as well as a driver requester. I'm going to pause this here. Driver requester email tool. So for a user tool, anybody who is ever and does have access to the solution, they would get an email that you send out. You might want to come in here and say, hey, the people that I really want to know the changes are the people that have been using Motorpool for the last 6 months, the regulars. So again, there's ways for you to really dissect who you want to send this mass email out to. And so you can just come in here, start to play around with these configurations, right? And then I'm going to send it to both my drivers and my requesters. And I'm just going to put in, right, you're the new sheriff in town, and your messaging. So the cool thing about our email tool here is you can generate an email list, right? And we can include everybody, or we can come in here and we can select specific individuals. When we're ready to go, let's send this message. So let's say you are the new person in town. We had this very recently where the previous person was still being shown as it's their name and their phone number that you're supposed to call if you have any questions or have any problems with your reservation, right? So maybe I come in here and say, hey, just want to let you know, here's who you need to contact. Or again, Diane, she's going out on maternity leave. Moving forward, you need to contact Miguel for all of this stuff in the interim. So really cool tool that you can use. And again, it doesn't have to be throughout your whole organization. We just want it to impact Motorpool, so let's send it to our Motorpool users. The other thing that can help you communicate change is we do have, go to the next, sorry. is our welcome page. Again, all these are going to look a little bit different because we configure them different in the onboarding process, and it's all relevant to your information. But for those of you who have or haven't looked at it, and I challenge you, if you've been a customer of ours for a long time, go through and look at what you have here, because, right, do we have the right instructions? Are our policies up to date, right? Things might have changed. Did our rates change? Do we need to communicate that? Did we change locations? If we have our contact us or our FAQs, all of this stuff is there for your users and it can help you communicate mass change. So again, if you do want to change any of these, you're just going to go back into your admin site. You're going to go into configure enterprise settings. And we're going to come over here to your layouts. And you'll go and look for whatever layout that you need. And then once you click on it, just to let you know, once you click on that hyperlink, you may not notice a difference. Scroll down and it'll take you to the configuration of that page to where you can change it, right? And like just for our intents and purposes, we changed from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and there's a little bit different of a number. So again, this was just the welcome page and I chose this for the sake of time. I truly challenge you when it comes to if you're new in town, or if you've been there as a fleet manager for a while, go in through Fleet Commander and just make sure some of this stuff is up to date so that you're providing that best experience. And again, as things change, it not only is as a hassle for you, but it becomes a hassle for your users, depending on how you're working with your customers. There's a huge impact. The other thing that I would always recommend, if you have the ability to do it, and we could talk about this a little bit later, and we've done some workshop Wednesdays I'd invite you to go look at, is going through the customer satisfaction, right? So are there any questions on different mechanisms for change management? But also, if you don't have any questions, if there's anything that as we were going through this, you thought, man, I wish somebody would have told me this when this happened, when we went through this change. The thing I really love about Workshop Wednesdays and Command, our user conference, is just peer sharing and the group. So if you have any words of wisdom on Change Command and how it benefited you, feel free to enter that into the chat as well. All right, I'm assuming I didn't hear any questions. I didn't see any questions.
Todd, I have a question for him. Maybe they'll do it this way.
Yeah.
So my question is, going back to the accountability chart, how many of you have an accountability chart written out for your different positions in fleet, and who is primary and who is secondary? If you have an accountability chart, please put a 1 in the chat. And if you do not, please put a 2 in the chat. And there's no judgment. Just put a 1 or a 2. A 1 means you've documented it. A 2 means you haven't.
I like that.
So I'm seeing a lot of 2s. What that is, one thing that kind of brings to mind to me is that something that you think would be a helpful and useful workshop Wednesday if I would go through how to make an accountability chart, if Todd or I would do that? Say 1, if you would like to see us do that for workshop Wednesday, and 2, if you don't think it would be interesting. Or yes or no is also acceptable. Awesome. So I think that's what we'll focus on then for next month's workshop Wednesday. Okay, we'll really focus on trying to fill out those accountability charts. How do you get a chart communicated to everybody? How do you make sure you capture all the proper information? Who should the backup be for, person A? So depending on the task, if person A is gone, B is not going to necessarily be the backup for everything A does. Depending on the task, person B might be the backup or person C might be the backup. So we can kind of walk through all those intricacies of making sure that we do accountability charts.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. Are you going to bring out your
Yeah,
big binder?
I could do that. Yeah, and I love
That
it. Somebody has can we place a can you place a chart template? Yeah, that's something we can do. You betcha. Uh-oh, that's not a Minnesotan. I'm a little close to the border. You betcha. I
I
love
love
my
it.
Minnesota people. Okay, thank you for that
Yeah.
feedback. I really appreciate
Yeah.
that feedback, everyone. So we'll focus on that for next month. And if there's other things like this that, the Workshop Wednesday prompts that you really wish you knew that you had a handle on, let us know, because we're happy to look that up and find experts in those areas. Okay,
Yeah,
Todd,
absolutely.
sorry.
No, that was fantastic because that's exactly the feedback that we're looking for. Um, so thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for everybody who responded. Um, as always, right? I didn't talk about our fleet team. We always want to show we have the best jobs. We get a chance to meet with you guys in person and work with you on a day in, day out. But there's a bunch of people here supporting you when it comes to your fleet journey. And we're always going to ask you, how are you coming along in that journey? It is the beginning of 2025, even though it's closer to, the end of quarter one. But what are your fleet strategies? Are there ways that we potentially help you with your fleet strategies? We'd love to help out. And then command is coming up. We are very excited, and that's probably why Kathy said, "You betcha." It's because we are headed to Minnesota for Command 2025. These are the days. Anna's already put together a wonderful landing page we could send out to you if you don't have that already to register. But we would love to have you, whether you've been there 10 times or this is your first time. Mark it on your calendars. It's a fantastic experience with your peers. As always, expand your knowledge with Workshop Wednesday, and I challenge you, kind of talking about this change management. Is there somebody within your organization that would benefit from coming to Workshop Wednesdays? And maybe they can't make it to Workshop Wednesdays, but maybe they don't even know about Workshop Wednesdays on YouTube, right? Where they can go and watch some of this stuff. So please share that with people that are within your fleet that might find it beneficial. FC Drive, again, we talked about this a lot. Here's the link. Go to it. For those that message that they don't have access and need access, we'll work on that. And then again, the YouTube channel, it's there for you. Go ahead and use it. All of these different resources for you. We want you to succeed, even if you're not, you want to be a little bit more introverted. You don't want to reach out to Kathy or myself or our team. There's a lot of stuff that you can do on your own. And hopefully you find all of this beneficial. If you do, like as we've gone through this, and I think this is a great exercise for those of you who don't have potentially that roles and responsibilities chart or accountability chart. If you do have something like this and you want to share, or there's some other aspect of your fleet that you found that's very beneficial, let us know. We'd love to work with you and orchestrate. We're so grateful for Cornell and the folks at Cornell that led our discussions in January. Please reach out to Kathy if you want to share your wisdom and experiences. If you need help, reach out to us, reach out to FC support. You'll see this stuff in the documentation that's sent your way, and connect with us. There's a lot of stuff that we'll throw out there, especially on LinkedIn. on things that are coming up, things that we have that we're working on, and help us make it better. So I'm going to leave this on for just a little bit and maybe do an awkward song so you can scan this and maybe fill it out, or at least scan it and then
Yeah, we
fill it
really
out at a
need your
later
feedback
time.
on there. So we're really hoping, that you can score us at least a nine out of a 9 or a 10, on a 1 to 10 scale. And if for some reason you can't, we really, really need to know why not, right? What can we do?
Thank you for being an Agile Fleet customer. If you're not an Agile Fleet customer and you came out, we're looking forward to working with you. Thank you all. Have a great day.